Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff, and today I have a really special guest with us. I know you guys have been really looking forward to this episode. I have production coordinator at Cartoon Network. Yeah, I said it. A production coordinator at Cartoon Network, Diara Bradley, joining us. How are you doing, Diara?
Good. Hey, everyone. How's it going?
I'm super excited to have you on. Been talking about this a lot to a lot of my friends and listeners, and everyone's been really hyped about this recording. So especially again, it's Cartoon Network, and one of the networks that's made a huge impact on everybody's childhood, at least in our generation. So it means a lot that you took time out of your schedule to take and come on the SANE Show. So just want to let you know up front, I really do appreciate taking time out of your schedule to come and speak with me and the listeners today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So really quick, before I introduce the topics, I want to take a shout out to all the listeners listening across the world in all 50 plus countries. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys continuing to show your love and support for the SANE Show and helping continue to like, share, subscribe, and get the numbers up at the end of the day. Really appreciate you guys again. And if you're listening and you're not following the SANE Show, make sure to check us out on IG and Twitter at SANE_show. Again, that's SANE_show, SANE_show on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find us on Facebook at The SANE Show. Again, on Facebook, that's The SANE Show. So today, we're going to talk about the impact of cartoons. We're also going to talk about the animation production process. We're going to focus more so on the post-production process. And then following those two topics, we're going to have an interview with Diara so that you guys can learn more about her, what she does, her experience at Cartoon Network, and everything that goes along with that. So let's go ahead and hop right into it with the impact of cartoons. I'm super excited. We were talking about this for the recording, and again, this all just kind of goes back to why I'm like so excited to have someone like yourself on, and that is at Cartoon Network. It feels like sounds like a dream job, if you ask me.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. Definitely.
I can only imagine. So when I was thinking about this, right, and I was putting it together, and I'm thinking about one of the things like how cartoons spark imagination,
Mm-hmm.
and I think about shows like Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, and Eddie, uh,
Yeah.
Kids Next Door, like, and it's just like I think that's a beautiful thing about cartoons, right? Especially when we talk about kids, right, who are very impressionable, and obviously kids are, I think. Now that I'm an adult and I understand things better and I know a little bit more about children and the psychology about children, I think, lead the human population when it comes to having a good imagination.
Definitely.
And yeah, because one of the things I think about, especially again, growing up and watching those shows, I kind of relate because I'm in business and my degree is in entrepreneurship. And
Okay.
honestly, what kind of helped feed into that was watching a show like Ed and Eddie. And Eddie was
Mm-hmm.
always the one out there hustling and trying to make a
Yeah.
dollar off of a jawbreaker,
Exactly.
and then Dexter in this laboratory, what in his
Mm-hmm.
parents' basement.
Edie, always cranky style.
Yeah, and he always had ideas.
Yeah.
And Kids Next Door, like how cool that was.
Yeah.
These kids have this secret agents in the giant tree house. It just gets the brain going. So I guess when we talk about that, what are some of your thoughts around that when we're talking about like how cartoons spark imagination?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think I love cartoons because it is, like you said, it's so full of imagination and
Hmm.
creativity. And I think sometimes as we get older and, you start having to have adult-like responsibilities and stuff, sometimes that you don't think the same. You think more practical and you're thinking of like the things that you have to do. And it's like when you're a child, you have like the world is yours, like there are no limits. And that's one thing I love about being able to work in cartoons is because even being able to make television, of course cartoons are not just for kids, so I want to put that out there. I love watching
Yep.
cartoons. I feel like
Yep.
there's no limit to what age you should be watching cartoons. but with like an audience where you know that you are having kids watch your shows and that kind of thing. I love that aspect. My background initially was in news. And so when I came to Cartoon Network, it was such a transition, but such like a beautiful transition because it was just like it's more laid back. You still get work done and that kind of thing, but you're making cartoons. So it's about having fun and channeling that inner child like creativity to know that the limits are endless and that you have so much exploration within that aspect, which is something that I love. It's like when you're growing up as a child, of course, you can turn a blanket and all of a sudden it's some magical fort that has like you have superpowers and all this kind of stuff, and you remember like when you're a child just how
Yeah.
you can take some small concept and just expand on it and just create this whole new world around you. And to you, it's as realistic as it can be. And I just love that because that can translate into cartoons where you can have these characters doing those same things.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a great point when you talk about cartoons aren't just for kids, like
Yes.
adults. And like I was telling you, I saw my mom's friend watching cartoons, and I'm looking at her, aren't you too old to be watching cartoons?
Right.
But
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, and like I think about 3 years ago, 2 3 years ago, I got back into cartoons, and I more so watch anime now,
Okay.
and I'm so excited. Even though it's Disney, Proud Family's coming back, so whoop whoop
Yes.
there. But
Yes. Excited
um,
too.
but when it comes to cartoons, 2 3 years ago, got back in watching cartoons and watching anime, and it started with Dragon Ball Super. Like,
Mhm.
big fan of Dragon Ball Z as a kid, and then there's like Super. I found out about it, and next I'm binge watching it.
Yeah.
And specifically when we talk about anime, one of the things I think about is how, honestly, I tell people this all the time. Like, I watch animes, and there's so many positive life messages
Mm.
in the shows that have honestly helped me through troubled times,
Yeah.
where I've had moments and I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm in a rough spot and I could use like a message or something. And I remember there's one episode in Dragon Ball Super where Goku and Vegeta are training with Whis on Lord Beerus's planet, and he's teaching them to be able to go to Ultra Instinct. And one of the things he tells them is, you're pretty much like, this isn't typical training where you turn to all these different Super Saiyan forms and you level up through traditional training, running, lifting weights, and being in like the hyperbolic time chamber. It doesn't work like that. It's a mental game, in that for them to reach that next form, they had to trust in their
Right.
movements. Like, let your body do what it does. Like, just let it flow. And one of the things that taught me was that in things in life, in certain things, in order to get better, you just have to like release, let go, and trust that you know what you're doing, because
Right.
then you will get better. So it's like things like that, and it's like, if it like, yeah, people have told me and everything like that, but if it wasn't for something that I truly connected with to kind of help cement that message, then I really wouldn't have caught on to it.
Right.
If you understand where I'm coming from. But that's just to say that there's a message to a lot of these shows that I think people tend to overlook.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, with our generation and generations younger or coming behind us, that there's such an emphasis on animation, cartoons, because
Yeah.
there's so much positive that can be taken away from them.
Definitely. And it definitely changes with you too. So it's like the shows that we watched when we were much younger, we watch those same shows today. You're going to get things that you may not have got when you were younger, or receive a whole different message because you
Right.
think differently and that kind of thing. That's why it's like I love how it's like cartoons really grow with us kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's not just like a cutoff age and you can watch it and then you're just not learning anything from it anymore. Part of the aspect of cartoons is that you are teaching kids those life lessons as they're growing up, but those lessons still hold true as you get older. So I think
Yeah.
that that's such an interesting aspect of it.
That's for sure. Because, you bring me to my next point when you talk about that, because some of those messages were subliminal, right? As kids, you have to be careful in which how you present something.
Right.
And understandably so. But then when you go back and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what they were talking about. And even because I cannot think of a specific example, but I think about when we look at a lot of the social issues that we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with in society today. Is things like LGBTQ and even racism and cultural appropriation, things like that. But when we go back and we look at some of these cartoons, like they were actually making some of these things acceptable, but they weren't saying, like, you didn't know what was going on, right? You just
Right.
knew, you watched it and you saw how the characters were treating one another and how they all got along no matter their background, their orientation, where they came from. Because there's definitely those cartoon characters that we looked at and it's like, man, he seemed different, but he cool though.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah. I didn't know. Mm-hmm.
but we look at it, it's like, okay, that, because we look at it now, it's like, oh, it's whatever now. It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't bother me none. Like, and that's the cool thing about how these shows, like, and I'm just like, wow, like I didn't know that they were, a lot of these shows were taking and embedding positive things into children that we, like you said, just we didn't even notice. It just went
Right.
over our head. But in our subconscious, it definitely helped. So then when we look at it as adults, we're like, that's what they were talking about 20 years ago or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
so true. Because it is like, again, they change with society and like there's different, even like the rules have changed and that kind of thing. Like the way that you can have shows on TV and like the things that you can say or,
Hmm.
what's openly out there and that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So it definitely does change in that
Yeah.
aspect. But then also, as our mentalities change and like the different things we're used to, it formulates that experience that's going to be different for the show.
All right, now we're back. It's always fun talking about cartoons. I felt like I was able to kind of step out of my shell a little bit, and because I'm always
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
and had that conversation. It felt really good. That was exciting. So it's gonna, now we're going to get a little business, but hopefully not too much. We're going to talk about the animation production process, more so concerning post production when it comes to cartoons.
Okay.
And I know in talking to you a little bit, and you're giving me a little bit insight as far as how you kind of help out with that stuff. It found it very interesting as far as how that works. Because honestly, and I'm not afraid to admit, when I put this together, I'm thinking about how the shows actually come together, right? From the
Yeah.
sketching and to finding the voiceover actors and the editing and the coloring and the rendering and storyboarding and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you told me what you said, what you said, because obviously that's a part that we often overlook as far as the post production and the marketing of it, because really that's what's going to get the viewership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that you mentioned that I definitely made note of is the difference between live action and animation. And it's funny, when I was looking into the production process in general, that was one of the things that I looked into, because I know one of the things I saw, like, because I'm thinking it was just going to be a thing of, well, what you don't have to deal, there are things you have to do or deal with doing live action productions that you don't have to deal with doing cartoons.
Right.
I got to the point where it's like, well, there are the trade-offs
Mhm.
that you have. And so I guess if you could, from your side, give me and the listeners a little bit of insight into that part of the differences in live action and animation.
Well, to begin with, animation, it's definitely a much longer process because, of course, with technology, there's different ways. It's not their hand drawing stuff, but we have technology to make things go faster and that kind of thing within the actual production of the show process. But a lot of the stuff that I do day to day is creating the promotion for the show. So once the 6+ month process of, animation and getting the show, even for just one episode together, happens, there's a whole other aspect of the promotion of that show. So if we have a particular episode that's like it's a special episode or a new episode, we're gonna make a promotion lineup for it, so to get all the viewers very excited about this episode and make sure that they tune in on this time and that kind of thing, which is also another difference in the aspect that we have so much access to on-demand viewership. Unless you're getting really, really excited because you want to see it right when it comes out, some people are like, I'll just watch it later and that kind of thing. So the goal is to definitely get you and, kids or whoever's going to be watching to want to turn into that particular time and be able to watch the show instead of like watching it later. Or sometimes we'll promote like the app, like, hey, this episode's going to come out early on the app, so tune into the app, that kind of thing, before it comes on air. As far as like the differences between live action, I talked about how it is a longer process and that kind of thing, but also with the promotion of it. If you have a live action show, we've come to know, if you have a favorite TV actor and that kind of thing, their face, you're probably following them on Instagram, you're super excited if they're posting stuff about this show and that kind of thing, that's going to get you excited as well. With animation, there are like voiceover actors who have been in this game probably on top of all of your favorite cartoons growing up and that kind of thing. And you may not even know what they look like, know their name or anything like that, because you only recognize the character that's in the animation process. Of course, people who are really into cartoons and that kind of thing, you might research and you might find out the person's name and then their face and you follow them on Instagram. But a lot of the promotion is based on our network instead of being able to go directly through the talent, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So because, the voiceover talents might not be as popular or facial recognition as someone who's live action and you're constantly seeing them every day, because you might know their voice, but you don't necessarily know their face. So that is something that's different as well. That it's like sometimes one particular voice actor could be doing like so many different voices and stuff. We work with Tara Strong a lot for shows and that kind of thing, and she's a phenomenal voice actress, and she's been on all different networks. And even since I was a lot younger and like growing up and watching cartoons, she was voices on Rugrats and different kind of stuff like that. So that aspect of it is very cool to be able to work with these voice actors. Another aspect of it, I'm like trying to think of this whole process. It's a never-ending process. So when we're promoting the show, we're hiring different voice actors to do the voice of the promotions, or coming up next on Cartoon Network, we have our network voices. So I set those up, sometimes hold auditions if we're looking for a particular voice. We just had one promotion for DC Superhero Girls, which is under DC and Warner Brothers and that kind of thing, which we're all together now with this merger and that kind of thing.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm like, it's fun. So holding auditions for that, like, hey, we want, a writer might come and say, for this promo, I wrote the script and I'm thinking that I want like a 80s rock and roll sound and that kind of thing. And it's like, I reach out to agents and I'm like, hey, this is the sound that we're looking for. Here's a script. Can you send me over some auditions? And then we go through those and pick somebody and get that recorded, get them set up at a studio, and that becomes the promo. We do graphics as well for it. So what you call like lower thirds, that would be, I'm trying to think of a way to describe it, like a little strip at the bottom of your screen where it's like, hey, coming up next is this particular show. We have up next, Titans Go, if you see those, or when we have our countdown clocks, those are in the upper right. And those are basically a countdown clock. It's counting down to the time of that special premiere and that kind of thing. So there's so many different aspects of, and that's just with like the on air. And then of course we have social media and we want to promote it that way. So it's a lot of different fun ways. I think like the promotion aspect is so fun because you really get to connect with the fans and the people who are going to be watching the show, all of the viewers, and seeing them get excited or reposting those different kind of things on their network or on their social media to show that they're interested in watching that or commenting. Or even if people have feedback where they're like, I really wanted it to go this way. We watch all that kind of stuff. So when you have opinions, we see those and that kind of thing. Even the ones where it's like feedback where you're like, oh, I wish it would have gone this way, or I want the old cartoons back. I know we hear that a lot.
Oh yeah, I know y'all. Ooh, man, I just got one special request. Bring me Courage.
Oh my gosh, that show is amazing.
That was the show. Not to get off topic, but there was one episode I remember. It was actually the one with King Ramsay's return to Slab, and that was the one I couldn't sleep that night. And I remember I had a nightmare. But I was like, yo, that is a good show. And that's probably why I like horror movies now.
Yeah, so, it's really good.
It's interesting when you talk about the actors. You reminded me, like the lady, I'm a big fan of The Simpsons, and the lady that does the voice for Bart Simpson. I remember I see this like random person with the Instagram check, like looks at one of my stories on Instagram, and I wonder who this is. And I look, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the lady that voices Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
And obviously I followed her. Like, she's like one of the coolest. I never really knew her name, but I'm like, oh man, she's one of the coolest people in the world. Like Bart Simpson, it was so dope. But yeah, even like thinking about like the show I know for sure that has like a lot of celebrity voices. The Proud Family. You got Tommy Davis Jr., Kyla Pratt, Cedric the Entertainer. Obviously, they have guests come on, but it's like, yeah, you learn. Like, I remember when I found out Cedric was Uncle Bobby, I'm like, what?
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, you don't know. And I think that's also why a lot of, like, you see these, like, movie lineups and stuff for animated movies, and it's like, they're names that you know of. So it is kind of like that aspect where it's like someone who might be a dedicated voice actor, they might pick that role to go to someone who's more of a known name to be able to do in that movie. So, because they know that they're going to get the promotion from it and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That is true. I think about movies like, not even movies, but actors, like Will Smith and Chris Rock. They notorious with some of those animation roles. And you can just tell, even like Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, like just there's a whole host of actors that you can think of that have roles, and it's like, you know what, that guy, like he is that guy for that role, and you can almost just tell like they handpicked him for this because like, that perfectly suits him. And it's like the movie, I think it's Shark Tales or something?
Will Smith.
Yeah, and like, it's like this running joke that the character even looks like Will Smith.
Yeah.
All right, now we're back for the interview. One of the highly anticipated segments of the show. I'm going to ask Diara some questions so that the listeners can learn a little bit more about you, your time at Cartoon Network, and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. This has really been a good show. When I'm this excited, I know it's a good show. So.
Yay! Well, I'm excited.
So to kick off with the first question, what's your favorite cartoon growing up?
I can't pick just one. I can't. I have
to pick. It's like trying to figure out who's your best friend.
I know, exactly. You don't want to leave any out. Keeping it in the network, I think definitely, like, I loved Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory. I know we talked about those. Kids Next Door. Okay. Johnny Bravo, even though Mom did not like me watching Johnny Bravo. I actually said that in my interview. I was like, they asked you in my interview, like, what shows did you watch? And I'm just like, I liked Johnny Bravo, but my mom did not want me watching that. You know, he was a little fresh and that kind of things. That one, it was a good show though, and you know, Courage, of course, we talked about that.
Hey.
Yes, I was a big Rugrats fan.
Okay.
I even went to like they had like a live show when I was younger and stuff. I remember going to that and being so excited. Hey Arnold, Cat
Okay. Okay.
Dog, Rocco's Modern Life. There's so many good shows, and SpongeBob has been a classic that has
Yeah.
lasted through
You about to
lots of
make me
years.
break out and sing a
Generations.
theme song or two.
Yes, yes, yes. So
That's
so
that's
many of
what's
those.
up. What's that dance Johnny Bravo had? What was it, the monkey or something?
Which show?
It was Johnny Bravo. He had to dance and
Oh,
like,
yeah,
what's it called? Like do the monkey or something. And he do the thing with his
yes,
arms.
yes, 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 yes,
Johnny
yeah.
Bravo,
And it's the
man.
same titles. I'm like, I just have this big smile on my face. You think back to all this difference. It brings back such good memories.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
you
the
took it back.
education, even like wild thornberries. I remember
Yeah.
learning so much about animals from that show. So there
Yep.
were some good ones.
I
I'm
remember
gonna
when
be
that show
that
came
person
out.
that's like, we had some good cartoons growing up.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. That's me right now. What are
Yes,
y'all watching? This ain't cartoons.
exactly.
Oh man. So what's it like? I know you kind of touched on it, but just from you as a person outside of the production coordinator, what is it like for you working at Cartoon Network?
I love it. I think there's so much fun and creativity that goes into it. I know I mentioned before that I worked in news before, and it's like night and day. Like I love working cartoons, and you have designers and writers, and there's just so much creativity going in all different aspects, and so many different talents. Like I feel like everyone's like fascinated with each other's job. Like we have these things that we've kind of commanded and got in order and that kind of thing, and we know how to do. But then it's like if I'm looking at a designer and they're like coming up with this concept and that kind of thing, I'm like, wow, that's so creative and stuff. So really that collaboration aspect is how we all come together with our talents and our gifts and be able to create some pretty amazing things. I think that also with the longer process, you really get to establish a relationship with like the people that you're working with, but also with these characters within the show. Like you're working with them for months on end. It's not like with live action, you may have a cast of getting to know the cast and stuff, but you might wrap after a couple months and that kind of thing. It's really like a slower process, a lot of dedication and that kind of thing. I love working in the cartoons. And it's cartoons. Like we always joke, it's like, yeah, we get work done and stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, it's cartoons. It's supposed to be fun. So we shouldn't really be stressed out about different aspects. Like the crazier
Right,
it can get, sometimes that's even better.
right. What's the slogan Cartoon Network used to have? I remember it was cartoon cartoons.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I remember that like yesterday. Man, 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 man. This recording is just giving like just bringing back all the memories, all the feels. It's just nostalgic. All it's nothing but nostalgia. That's what I love about this right now.
After this, you're gonna go and try to like look up all these different older shows and like look them up so you can watch them.
Right? um. So, what are some of the challenges the network faces when it comes to satisfying multiple generations? And I ask this because you know this from experience that we were really into cartoons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't let go really. And now we have this new generation that obviously they're kids, they love cartoons, and we have just as much as of a love for cartoons than they do. So now I almost feel like it's a battle to an extent
Right.
for,
Yeah.
for who loves cartoons more and who should have their shows, their favorite shows, right? You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff. What if there are any? What are some of the challenges of having to try to satisfy multiple generations of cartoon fans?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely a challenge to satisfy everyone in anything, but you know,
Yeah,
especially when people are tuning in to watch TV and that kind of thing, they're going in for a reason. And watching the network change and how we don't have like content it's just different. And even like the way that kids watch TV and what their interests are and how they watch, we talked about, the on-demand aspect, but kids especially, like, they love watching things like on their phones. So that's why we have like the app and stuff, but kids love YouTube. And I feel like kids will watch just like hours and hours and hours of YouTube and stuff like that. Or
it's true.
I feel like our generation, we watch cartoons longer, where it's like now kids are like 8 and they're like, oh no, it's for babies sometimes, like that. So it's like you want to watch gamers and all this different kind of stuff on these different media outlets like YouTube and that kind of thing. But I think with Cartoon Network, it's definitely a cool aspect for the fact that we have Boomerang with the classic cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Scooby-Doo. And then we have Cartoon Network, and as well as Adult Swim. So we have like that wide spectrum of generations. Of course, I have to remind people like just that things are changing now. So it's like the shows that we were interested in and that kind of thing, and the shows that are on air now, we might be like, oh, that's not as good as our shows and that kind of thing. But it's like kids like them. The interests are just changing. Viewing patterns are changing. We all think that each generation thinks that they have the best cartoons, but I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say, 90s, early 2000s really had the best cartoons.
Oh, yeah. That's what.
Yeah. I'm like, that's not debatable. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to say it's not debatable. I'll go ahead and say that.
Thank you. But yeah, it's just like, it's so nostalgic to think about like the shows that we watched.
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of saddens me though to hear that. And I mean, that's the reality of it though. I do accept that. Part of me did think like, well, y'all at work anyway.
Yeah.
don't you gotta get up in the morning?
Yeah, exactly. We have to be like, so, not for us anymore sometimes. It's like, it's not about what we want.
Right. That's very true. That's very true. But you definitely bring up a unique point. But I think too, Cartoon Network does a phenomenal job. Obviously, one, it is the network purely dedicated to cartoon, and though on the Adult Swim side, it has other kind of content, but maybe like a show or two from what I've seen. But still, it's like straight cartoons. It is the network, and I think Cartoon Network also did a great job when it came to the games, the online games. I remember getting on the computer and going and playing online games and things like that. And I just think that Cartoon Network has also done a great job in teaming up with Lucasfilm and doing shows like Star Wars and all that kind of good stuff. So I just think that like Cartoon Network's done it, even though they're not playing the shows I want to watch. Like, I still think they've done a good job in keeping up with the trends and keeping themselves relevant as the Cartoon Network.
Yes,
cartoons. No pun intended. Whatever you want. But it's the name of the network, and they are you guys are like the epitome of what a cartoon channel should be. My final question to you. What are some things that us older cartoon fans, specifically Cartoon Network fans, can look forward to?
I think one thing that we're really constantly just trying to develop is just like fan interaction and making it so that you're really being able to interact with our brand. So I love that. And of course, we'll have some new content and stuff like that. But yeah, you definitely got to tune in. We got some new stuff coming up. Always excited this time of year because we gear up for Comic-Con, which that's definitely just like one of my favorite events, is just going out there and being able to see fans dressed as different characters, whether they're newer characters or older characters, out in San Diego. And it's just so much excitement and just the interaction to see that there are kids who are very young, excited about it, and then kids that are much older. We have Steven Universe, which has been a big show that has translated over fans of all ages and that kind of thing. And we have, Steven Universe Future, which is getting people very excited and that kind of thing as we have that. So yeah, it's like some new content and just really staying true to the brand and like being able to interact with fans and allow them to interact with our brand.
So, and you might not be able to say, and I understand. I normally don't do questions on the spot. That's not part of the conversation. But can we expect anything almost like a kind of like how Disney's done, where they've brought back certain shows that are really in high demand?
Well, we do have the HBO Max app, so we'll be a part of that. I can't say too much. We'll see what comes out.
That is sufficient enough. Really quick, if you have anything that's coming up that you, as far as like announcements, anything that cartoon fans should be on the lookout for on Cartoon Network, and also I know you got your YouTube channel as well. If you got anything that you want to make the listeners aware of, please let them know, because I would love for them to be able to keep up with you and also, stay on top of the things that not only that Cartoon Network has going on, but you also have going on yourself.
I'm making it a point to post more stuff that we are doing day to day at Cartoon Network. You can follow me on Instagram at Diara J, so DiaraJaye, and also my YouTube channel. I talk about movies. I love the film aspect and the film industry and actors and different kind of stuff. So you can check out my YouTube channel. It's Diara J as well. That's where you can follow me, and be sure to say hi. Sometimes I talk about like how we make promos on my Instagram, and just like showing you Cartoon Network and that kind of thing. So it's fun.
Yeah, I know I checked out one of your YouTube videos. So actually the one you did on Bad Boys. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a good movie. That was a good movie.
So everybody, make sure to go follow Diara on Instagram and go check her out on YouTube as well. Like really great content, obviously doing what she does. That's a given. So be sure to go check her out. A lot of great stuff, and keep tabs on her and what they're doing at Cartoon Network as well. You won't regret it. I can guarantee you that. And thank you again, Diara, for taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show. I really appreciate it. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you, and just having this great, fun conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this. This was so much fun, and
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Great way to end the day.
Yes. Like, you can't have a bad day. Like, you can't help but smile talking about cartoons.
Right. Exactly. So thank you again. And thank you to the listeners. Thank you guys for taking and tuning in and continuing to like, share, subscribe as always. Make sure to, again, go follow Diara and go follow the SANE Show. Keep tabs on everything. You're listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.
Bye.